Hello, it's Power here to review the Kamen Saber DX Primitive Dragon Wonder Ride book. So this is the Wonder Ride book, or the super form associated with Kamen Saber. Obviously, we get Saber Primitive Dragon, Brave Dragon. Obviously, it's CGI render because they're lazy. There's the full form, bottomness. This is all the same CGI model, but essentially this is everything that it does. And Rekka Bato. So here we have Primitive Dragon out, and it's pretty interesting. The front cover is pretty nice. Obviously it's in the same font as, you know, all the Dragon series. This looks like Blue Eyes White Dragon with a vortex there. Obviously this belongs in the Divine Beast slot. I love the pearlescent white here. It's beautiful. Obviously traditional Wonder Ride book text, and I think this actually might be text. I thought it was just the side thing. The back is pretty interesting. Obviously, we're back to the traditional Wonder Ride book, Power Up Wonder Ride book look, but before there's the QR code for Gambarizing, the activation button, which is a button just like Jaw Dragon, and the Wonder Mark, obviously speaker. The side, nothing. Opening it is interesting because there's nothing. This is actually the story page, which is literally just this entire corner. Then we get two buttons right here, a trigger, and then this thing. However, if we fold that back, we get the transformation page of Primitive Dragon, which I forgot to do in the demo, but oh well. As you can see, Saber Primitive Dragon and his hand, like so. I should, well, it's kind of flimsy, but I should just note this, that my camera's it's kind of washing the blue out, so it's making it look more white. But that's not the case. Obviously, just flip it back like so. Comparing it to Dragon Ignite, they're essentially the same size. Again, these are similar, except you can tell this is clearly where the molding was for this trigger button, but they got rid of it for some reason. Like, I appreciate the button, but like, you already established this thing. Keep consistency. And basically because of this button here, it doesn't have this slot for the Dragonic booster, so you sadly cannot fit this thing in here at all. like yeah, it won't work. But the fact that you can't even fit this thing in and actually activate the correct sounds kind of sucks. Because I don't know why they don't like utilizing that toy. I also should probably note that X Swordman also doesn't work. Just because of how this already ends. So there's actually not enough clearance to push X Swordman in. And then, comparing this to a Wonder Ride book, obviously it's puny and such. And as you can tell, like from the buttons here, there's actually no button here to activate sounds. That's a thing for the power-ups. I guess I never mentioned that. So let's go through the sounds. So you only get one singular sound when pressing this. And then we're gonna skip the first button, or like the first cover press, and just jump to the story announcements. So that's the main one, but it's never used. I wanna get the force. So that's essentially it for Primitive Dragon. Let me change this. There. Hopefully you can actually see the blue now. I apologize if it was washing out. But essentially when you first open this up, it will be in a standby. It will be in the standby phase because it's waiting for you. Whoops. It's waiting for you to load in a Wonder Ride book, which we will do later. I was also going to say that unlike Dragon Ignite, you can't press this. This button's actually pretty sensitive because it actually doesn't double as the activation. If you want the activation, you have to press this. So, yeah. That's essentially it, so let's get the sword driver. Obviously we need Rekka, and I forgot to showcase this in the demo, I apologize, but obviously if we insert this by itself, the camera doesn't focus. And then if we try to just pull it out, nothing. Even if we have it out, and if we push the cover, nothing. Yeah, so that's pretty disappointing that you don't get anything with, you don't get anything out of this when you don't have a Wonder Ride book in, which is kind of infuriating, because, like, you know, I was just thinking that this was going to be like the adapters from Build, where if you don't load in a bottle, you at least get the instrumental. Like, I'm not asking for the same thing, but I'm at least asking for, like, additional functionality without a Wonder Ride book. So I think it kind of sucks you're kind of forced to, like, you kind of need a Wonder Ride book for this thing, but, oh well. Obviously, to get to the main transformation process, obviously push the cover back. Have this standby play. Now we're gonna load our Wonder Ride book into the slot like so. The standby for the transformation won't start. Simply slot it in to the sword driver like so. It'll continue until you pull out the Seiken. And there we have the transformation for Primitive Dragon, which is pretty neat. It's neat that we're going back to, like, the Primitive Dragon's going back to simplicity, unlike Dragon Ignite and such. And I really like how this, like, silhouette looks overall of Saber grabbing the Wonder Ride book. I think that's actually pretty clever. Obviously, just like traditional power-up books, we have two finishers by pushing the cover. So we get the new finisher standby. I find it interesting that it doesn't say, like, primitive. It just says, you know, it's like when you push it back, it says crush, which is, I guess, an interesting adjective to select for this. Or grab. This, it's grab and then crush. That will happen. Like, the finishing sounds are pretty simple and such. Obviously, that's it, really. But obviously, to eject the Wonder Ride book, just slide it out like so carefully. Nope. That's what's supposed to happen. So, okay, this is going to be complicated to explain, but essentially, I'll explain it later. Obviously, you can use other Wonder Ride books. So obviously in show, Toma stole Lion Senki with the consciousness of primitive, so we're gonna do that like so. So obviously, if you I guess the naming formation is title of book and then get. Obviously, same transformation, and this time I'll show the Seiken finishers because they're the same as Dragon Ignite. I just spoiled that. Like, it's the same as Dragon Ignite just because it makes sense. So I'm not gonna really bother showing the Seiken finishers because obviously all the major whatever finishers are within this. So sliding it off and then sliding the book out. So let's talk about how complicated the system works. So, the Wonder Ride books obviously are full. There's nothing like etched out on them. So they hit both of these buttons. And essentially how this works, let me fold this. So how this works essentially is like, this is too dark. But you see this button here? So, when you insert a book I can actually use, I can't, I don't know. Okay, so I guess we're gonna have to stick with the DX book. So, essentially, as you can tell, when I'm sliding this in, it'll jump to that. However, yep. So how this works essentially is that this button will essentially be made so then when the Wonder Ride book is slot in, it will pop up. It'll pop up to hit this middle button here. And then when you completely set the Wonder Ride book, it will keep this down so then it doesn't constantly hit this button. However, it's flawed. Like, this mechanism isn't necessarily flawed, it's just the sensitivity of the Wonder Ride books. Because if you put it in too fast, this button doesn't get enough time to press the button up here for the Wonder Ride book. So you have to be like extremely like slow, not extremely slow, because then you get issues like that. The issue is that if you put it in too slowly, then you're gonna end up having this trigger button hold the Wonder Ride book button, and you don't want that. You want to like just moderately, like you want to gradually insert it, not like that. I apologize. I apologize if I explained that too complicatedly, but I'm not even going to bother with the Heisatsu read because it's literally just Densetsu no Shinju. Like, there's no point. And then, obviously, the Kuriyami. Yeah, like, obviously you only get the singular attack because it is a giant monster. But yeah, overall my thoughts on Primitive is that, it's a nice, differentiation between the power-up books for sure. I find it really interesting they actually decide to go with the gimmick of, oh hey, you can actually use the Wonder Ride books within this. Cause like this does kind of have the Decade Ride Watch vibes of like, oh yeah, look, you can now take your books and insert them into another book. But I think probably this time around you can actually be more creative because obviously like these things actually, say what they are. Unlike the Decade Ride Watch where you're kind of stuck to like, for example, 01 and Saber are just going to say Kamen Rider because they're not programmed within the Decade Ride Watch. Because I guess what I'm trying to say is the Decade Ride Watch has its own reader and such. This thing's reader is just hitting the button here. Again, like, the big flaw with it, again, is not, I can't really blame it on this. It's really the sensitivity of the Wonder Ride books because, again, I haven't like, reviewed this thing because I'm going to review it in a stupid way. But the Hondanas have this same issue too of sensitivity, of the ride book sensitivity, because again, if you don't put it in, like, these ones tend to actually cooperate a lot more, but if you just simply like, for example, like if you like fidget your way through, you're just gonna get the ejection sound, and then like you kind of have to like fight it to like. I don't know what happened. He activated Storm Eagle apparently, but essentially it's just kind of like the ride books are just really sensitive, and so it's just kind of like it makes these gimmicks kind of. It kind of just makes like trying to like play with it smoothly complicated, but like I would definitely say the mechanism here is actually a lot more smarter than just a simple button that like gets pressed when you slide the Wonder Ride book in. But I still have to say the Henshin Seikens are probably the best at how they handle the mechanism. Just because, it's just they simply like the Wonder Ride books get simply lodged in. And then like it just hits the button once, and then that's it. I'm pretty sure they probably didn't go with this option because they wanted the like, the book activation sound again when you eject the book, but other than that, I do recommend this book, obviously because this is a like near the end of this came out in March, which is essentially when the third quarter stuff gets released. Even though this is a second quarter item, it is relatively difficult to get. So, I sadly had to get this thing for around like $30 off of CS Toys. Not worth it, but basically because you do get to switch around with a bunch of Wonder Ride books. I don't mind it personally. Technically, that's how much it is. So it not. It's just, I don't feel as bad, but it just know this is going to be really hard to get. So this is PowerRider, and I'll leave you people. Bye.